Hi, this is Angela Printner-Smith, founder of Managing and Director of This Is Milk and Neve Learning, and this is Angela Talks. Today we're talking about how failure isn't fabulous. So we may well have all heard the mantras that come out of like the Silicon Valley startup world of failing forward, how you have to fail so many times until you get a success, how we have like fuck up nights, and really about this kind of celebrating failure. But the truth of the matter is we're not looking for failure. Nobody really wants their company to fail. Nobody really wants their personal life to fail. We don't want it. And in many cases, it's a huge loss. You know, we've invested a lot in, and we all as humans have something called sunk cost bias, right? We've sunk a lot of something into an initiative, into a product, into a relationship, and we don't want that to fail. And it isn't fabulous. What is worth celebrating, however, is the learning that we do off the back of the failure. And I was on a panel last week with Mark Logan, and he was really quite instrumental in talking about how we shouldn't make everything a failure. We need to distinguish between what is a mistake and what is a failure. Mistakes are the things that happen every day. I made a mistake with that web copy. I made a mistake in how I spoke to that person. Those aren't failures. Those are just mistakes. And by kind of reclassifying that actually mistakes is how we learn. Failure, of course, is how we learn, but failure is and can be very catastrophic, and it is what we're trying to avoid. Mistakes, however, are the learning mechanism that get us to something better. They're part of that journey towards taking us to success. We aren't striving for failure. And I do think there's a little bit of a risk in over amplifying failure as something that we should be striving for, because if we do that, it's almost as if we're asking to fail. And if that's what we're focused on, and if we're focused on, failure as an outcome and as a good outcome, it's probably what we're going to get. And actually, what we need to be striving for is success. And what do we define success as? So I think this is really quite important. I also think this concept of being able to fail and, fail big, etc. And, don't take a founder until they failed 2 times before. It's a privileged position that you're talking from. Many of us who don't have the safety nets of rich parents or, educational backgrounds that have given us a step on the road, we don't have the option to fail. If you've got children, you've got mouths to feed. We don't have that option. So yes, we can learn through mistakes, we can learn through trial and error, but we do not have the safety net of failing 3 times to pick ourselves back up and do it again, right? It just isn't plausible. And in a country such as Scotland, where the investment market isn't as buoyant as, say, Toronto, Waterloo, or the Silicon Valley, there isn't millions and millions of pounds for us to just fail a few times before we get it right. Like, that money is hard to come by. The successes are hard won. So there is definitely a privilege to that statement that I think we should call out, that failure is basically the privilege of those that have the money, the time, and not a lot of people looking to them to be fed. So rather than saying failure is fabulous, let's actually call it what it is. The journey of trial and error and learning, that is fabulous. Failure isn't, and we do want to avoid it. So don't be looking for failure. Don't be beating yourself up if you've made a mistake. Don't be beating yourself up if you have failed as well, because bad times end as well as good times. And that's what Mark also said at the panel last week. And there is always a way out, harder for some than others, but there is a way out. So failure isn't fabulous. It's just part of a journey. And on that, I'm just going to ask you all, if you could subscribe, that would be great, so that I know that people are listening and they want to hear more. Thank you.